This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From Not a Pipe Publishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
I can't. Okay. Today's secret word is owl.
Perfect. Oh, that's great. Okay, I think I'm going to keep your laugh in there too, because that's a great laugh. Welcome, everyone. Today's guest is Marianne Xenos. Marianne is a writer and artist living in Western Massachusetts. She's the author of Doom Cookies and Donuts in the new anthology Written with Pride, and Red Tail Shifters in the anthology The Underdogs Rise, Volume 1, among other various publications in all kinds of places, many of which you can find online. So that is cool. But I am looking forward to checking out The Underdogs Rise myself. So welcome. Very glad to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
So regular listeners know our first thing we do is tell everybody about these costumes we're wearing, because the viewers can see what we chose to wear today. We always dress up in costume, but our podcast listeners have no idea what we're wearing. So tell everybody about your costume today.
Oh, well, I am dressed in a long black trench coat with pink cowboy boots, and I have dark Matrix glasses on because I'm thinking a lot. I'm channeling Neo's auntie. That's why I feel like I am today, is Neo's auntie. So
very cool. I wanted to go classic sci-fi too. I know Matrix is modern, but it's achieved that place in the sci-fi pantheon. But I went way back, so 70s. I went with Sean Connery's costume from Zardos. So if people don't know what Zardos, the folks watching know, this is a costume to remember. It is an epic sci-fi costume, and those of you who are listening to the podcast, I encourage you, look up the Zardos costume. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm feeling brave, and I decided to try it out. So check out the Zardos costume online if you want to know what I'm looking like today.
And I appreciate your spirit. Thank you very much.
This was, it took some courage to put this on. So what is something this is a show about procrastination, what we're doing when we're not writing. So what's been taking you away from your writing this week?
I'm a little bit boring, and the thing that takes me away from my writing sometimes is cooking shows. I watch a lot of Chopped, and there are two things I like about Chopped. One is that it's like a story prompt. They say, we'll give you these 4 ingredients. What can you do with them? And they have nothing to do with each other. And somehow they come up with a dish. And that we often do the same thing with stories. You come up with the most, just crazy associations and put them together into a story. And the other thing I like is that chefs tend to tell stories, and their food often tells stories. And a lot of chefs, my grandparents are all immigrants, and a lot of them worked with cooking. And I think cooking often brings people to this country that's a as a job that they can come and do.
Right.
So anyway, so the chefs come from Cambodia. They come from, there's Greeks. Anyway, they tell so I like that. I like that about chefs.
I'd never thought about the mystery ingredient being very much like a writing prompt, but you're right, it is. So often our prompts are, here's 2 things you would not have expected to go together, create a story, and then that can be a great tool.
So, yes, a lot of Chopped.
So outside of the fun of Chopped, what's some news that's been getting your attention lately?
Well, I try to avoid the ex-president as much as I can. So,
Wise.
I mean, I've seen his boxes in the bathroom, which is great. And the chandelier is great. And the memes are hysterical. And as long as I don't see his face, I think it's really funny. But I don't really like seeing him physically. But I've been feeling very aware, especially because we've been working on the anthology Written with Pride, that this is the anniversary of the Pulse massacre in Orlando, Florida. And as June as being a time when people are celebrating LGBTQ relationships, that there's also this anniversary of a really an attack on a sanctuary,
Right.
on a queer sanctuary. And so I've been feeling very aware of that. And on social media, a lot of friends posting, memories of that time period. And so that's been a news item that's really been at the front of my mind.
Yeah, in one of the ads we posted for the Written with Pride anthology, the vitriol has just been so ugly. And in the context of the wake of the Pulse nightclub shooting, I'm just
Right.
struck by, thinking, here's this thing that we should be, remembering with kind of horror, and yet here are folks who are still amping up that rhetoric. And so that has been very much on my mind, that reading this stuff is just, I've been really torn about, do we remove it all because we're taking that hatred out of the world, or do we leave it so that cishet folks like me are going, oh, this is what we need to be aware is out there, this level of hatred, and it's really vile. So yeah, that is hard.
It's a really good conversation, though, of thinking about what do you do? Because when I looked at it, and I was thinking I would have deleted all of it, because also I feel like I've heard it all before, but I also think sometimes people aren't aware of the depth.
Yeah.
Because that was like some really snaky, creepy, horrible stuff coming out of the woodwork.
Well, one of the things that was striking to me was it didn't take long for then it to start being also anti-Semitic, racist. And it was like, I want some of these folks to see, like, this is who you're hanging out with. This is who you're siding with. It's the same, intersectional oppressive thread, whether you, these folks are all kind of in league in whether they are conscious of it or not, in saying, I want this group or that group or this group eliminated from the world. And so that's been really striking and also scary.
That's a really good point. I mean, I still think I want you to delete it all, but I think it's a really good point. Can I go off script for a minute, even though we don't have a script? We have no script, and we're dressed up very sci-fi. But when I went to my first, it's also the anniversary of my very first gay pride march in, we used to call it just Pride. So my first Pride march, like 46 years ago. And at that time, there was no rainbow capitalism. There were no allies. There was not. I remember walking down Arlington Street in Boston and feeling like we were all going to die. Like, I really felt like it was one of the most frightening things I've ever done. And everybody stood by the side of the road staring with their arms crossed.
Yeah.
And it's a very different world now. I mean, people are out there trying to get your money. They're all trying to get the rainbow money. They like, here, we'll send you, Cracker Barrel has rainbow armchairs and things like that. I mean, that's funny, but it's an improvement.
It is interesting. It's a, folks will say, oh, it's performative. And I'm like, yeah, but it is an improvement. Like, it's this is much safer. It's better now. And at the same time, it is, it is that rainbow capitalism.
And I'll take that rainbow armchair. I mean, I love it. It's such a cool thing. At the same time, when you see these people posting, so there's something that has not changed and something that other things have changed.
Well, and maybe, I mean, has not changed or has changed in that they actually feel more threatened. Like, they're like, oh, I can't, this hatred that I was allowed to, have privately, I now have to be even more public with my hatred because, and so that level of vitriol was probably always there, but was hidden. And now it's so visible. As pride becomes visible, the hatred is also so much more visible. And that's what's scary. I see these images and I'm just like, you don't understand how close your rhetoric is to actual violence, and maybe in some cases they do, but I'm seeing it and I'm going, this is really frightening stuff. So,
that's a very good point.
That has been, challenging. On the other hand, it has been wonderful to see the folks who are pushing back. And, many of those folks are straight allies too. And they're saying this is unacceptable. And I'm like, good, there is, some support there, but that's been challenging to see.
And Written with Pride. I mean, just to think that it wasn't that, I mean, it exists, and this anthology exists. And I had a friend who wrote one of the very first queer anthologies. She wrote something called Pink Triangle. She edited it. pink triangles in the late 70s, early 80s, I think. And nobody was publishing books like that. And,
Right.
you know, so that was like it was a big deal. So this is to be able to have people publishing and people putting online, you know, asking for stories. That's all of that is a wonderful. I mean, of course, people can get married now, and marriage is a big deal. So all of those things are different. But knowing that the haters are as vocal and as fast and as sort of blatant as they are is still that's just a thing to keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah, well, and even like marriage and being able to adopt children, I am so grateful that folks can have their families recognized. And at the same time, when you see this hatred, it makes me so afraid for those couples and for their children, you know, that now they are recognized, and yet recognition is in and of itself this kind of documentation for hateful people, you know, and so that's you know, I am so pleased for these children who are going to get to be, you know, raised by families that love them and have that social recognition. And at the same time, I am going, oh, it is a scary world for a lot of families. Yeah. So what is something else that you've been getting up to when you are not writing lately?
Well, I'm also a visual artist under a different name. So and I have different glasses for that artist. But anyway, so I'm a visual artist under a different name, and I'm getting ready for a 2-person show. A lot of those pieces are based on stories, and I'm excited about that. So I have a typewriter. I have this great old, I wish I could show it on this. I have an old Olivetti Valentine typewriter that's like cherry red. And I hang it from the ceiling, and Rapunzel's diary comes hanging down from it. It's about 20 feet, a 20-foot type paper scroll. So I'm working on that, and that's it's a lot of fun. You know, I'm at the part of the work where we're doing publicity, and that's not as much fun.
Yeah, but what a cool idea for a piece. So how does, I mean, I'm thinking just weight-wise, just like the physics of it.
Problem.
This is a heavy, and Olivetti typewriters were not lightweight. And so how far is it hanging from the ceiling?
Well, we once built another time I showed it, except I want to make the scroll at least 10 feet longer this time. But the other time that we showed it, we built a shelf up at the ceiling, and it sat on the shelf to handle the weight.
Yeah.
This time I'm going to mount it just above eye level because it's a beautiful object.
Right.
The typewriter is gorgeous. So I'm going to mount it just above eye level. And I think we're going to use clamps at the top and bottom, but it's really going to have to be, it's going to make some holes in the wall. And, and then the scroll, which is going to be longer than last time, is just going to like pile up. It's just going to be piles and piles and piles of Rapunzel's story.
How are you lighting it? Because I think that could be really cool. You know, to either have a light right above or lights on the sides. How are you have you thought about that?
I think they're going to be like one from each side. I think because it's in this really cute corner of the gallery that it's also the anchor point. So when you walk into the show, it's going to be the first thing you see is this, you know, of story falling onto the floor. And so we have 2 spots that will be on it that will light it.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing pictures. I hope you can.
I will definitely send you pictures.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Well, one of the things we do on the show to kind of help folks get to know authors is I ask about if you were a Dungeons and Dragons character, and I know you're not a big D&D player yourself, so if you, when you know you're thinking about the kind of races and classes that people get put into in D&D, what would be your race and class and occupation?
I know that I've thought about this, and I was thinking, and I've never done Dungeons and Dragons, but I am really, I mean, I've been writing about dragons a lot, and so and that's just been so important to me, and I really care about wizards. I mean, I love wizards and I love dragons. So, I mean, that's, you know, I mean, of course, all the others, I don't know all the nuances of them, but you can't go wrong with a dragon.
Yeah. Well, and as writers, I'm working on an idea for a piece of, I don't normally write nonfiction, but I've been teaching creative writing for so many years now that I've got this ambition I've started note-taking for a book about writing that is all around the theme that really this is a book of magic, that writing is kind of telepathy where we put a universe into somebody else's mind. And so you're really not reading a book about creative writing. You're really reading this secret book of magic. And I think that would be a really fun way to kind of frame teaching somebody how to write. Think about this as telepathy, and so yes, I'm leaning into the wizard thing myself. I'm a big fan of wizards. Yes. So okay, you are a wizard and you are attacked in the woods by three small, not particularly menacing goblins. What do?
Oh, I would sing to them. And then the song is actually a spell, because the movement of their feet changes the way they think. So that's what I would do. I would sing to them.
That's an excellent answer. A singing spell that controls the goblins. I love it. Okay, we're going to go into our ad break now. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you about what you've been daydreaming about lately.
Whoa, nice question.
This week's show is brought to you by Miko Azul's The Staff of Fire and Bone and its sequel, The Rod of Wind and Iron. In The Staff of Fire and Bone, half-demon Cedrin Varkaris is on the run. He survived among his father's people as an Askari, sequestered behind the castle walls for his own safety. The Askari people tolerated his existence until age 15, when his demonic powers manifested. Despite being the son of a powerful regent, the Askari hate and fear him. The Shayli, his demon mother's people, hunt him as an abomination that must be destroyed. Magic is forbidden in Askari Bar, and Cedrin's powers are uncontrolled. Death and destruction follow him as he grapples with learning to use his abilities with disastrous results. With no safe haven to hide him, and few to trust, Cedrin must overcome a millennium of prejudice to acquire the 4 sacred elemental stones from the different peoples of Moralia. He needs them to create a talisman that may unify the various peoples of his world against the great demon Laylar, whose banishment nears its end. With little hope of redemption or thwarting Laylar's plans, Cedrin and his companions take heroism to a shocking new level. The choices they make and sacrifices they endure push them further than they ever expected possible, and the fate of all Moralians hangs in the balance. In The Rod of Wind and Iron, the adventure continues, with more complicated challenges and higher stakes. Although Cedrin has acquired Ration, the Staff of Fire and Bone, he knows it won't be enough to save his world from the ravages it faces. The Garanth army marches against the Askari, slaughtering everyone in their path and razing fields and towns alike. Meanwhile, an indestructible horde created by dark magic bears down on the Shayli, intent on destroying all life in Moralia. Amidst the chaos and death, Cedrin and Senna Kral, the daughter of a notorious spy, become unwilling allies. Senna's goal is to restore her father's reputation and save her city from total annihilation. Cedrin's quest is to acquire the lost Windstone of Yesmerantha, which is essential in creating the only weapon that could potentially challenge the great demon Laylar. Natural enemies, Senna and Cedrin devise an uneasy and temporary truce in order to achieve their ends. Betrayal is inevitable. Trust is impossible. Hope and time are running out. Order your copies of The Staff of Fire and Bone and The Rod of Wind and Iron today.
Authors, poets, playwrights, as some of you know, we participate in an annual fundraiser for the Alzheimer's Association called The Longest Day. On that day, people around the country and around the world do all kinds of things like walkathons and knitting and mountain climbing, and they ask their friends and families to make donations for their efforts to the Alzheimer's Association to support care for families and research to find a cure for Alzheimer's. I participated in a few walks and then said to myself, "Self, you are mediocre at walking and do not have a bunch of awesome friends known for their walking ability, but you can write and know a whole lot of other writers." So back in 2018, Not a Pipe Publishing put together our first Writing Against the Darkness team, and we've been going strong ever since. Here's the ask. You can join our team with a few clicks. If you want to, you can buy a t-shirt for the fundraiser, but that's not required. Then you post to your social media a few times asking your friends and family to pledge to support you. On Wednesday, June 21st, we all hop on a Zoom call together early in the morning to say hello, wish one another luck, and then we write from dawn until dusk, 5:24 a.m. to 9:04 p.m. here at my latitude. It's a long day, but don't worry, you can take all the breaks you want. In fact, if a Wednesday doesn't fit into your work schedule, you can do your longest day on another day before or after. The Alzheimer's Association won't turn your donations away. At the end of the day, we share out our word count and total them up and see how many words the team has written in a day.
and how badly John Dover, author of Once Upon a Fang in the West, has beaten us by every year. It's fun, productive, and raises money for a good cause. If you'd like to participate, there is a link in the show notes. We would love to have you on our team. So come join our Writing Against the Darkness team and write with us for a good cause. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. I'm back with Marianne Xenos. And Marianne, what have you been daydreaming about lately?
I think I daydream about the stories I'm writing a lot. They're in my head all day. And lately, I've been daydreaming about, I have been daydreaming about travel, but also I've been noticing that my characters tend, sort of when I'm feeling like I want to, because I'm still home a lot because of COVID, and I haven't traveled. I had some opportunities where I could have gone to Hollywood, to get this award, and I didn't go. And so I daydream about that. But I've been noticing that I send my characters on more trips. So I was writing a story and it was just going to be in Massachusetts. All of a sudden they're in Sicily. And then all of a sudden, they're like, why not go over to Istanbul? And so I've noticed that my stories are getting a little bit, and they all dance. Everybody dances. So it's sort of, I think that's where my daydreaming's been going, has been into my stories.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it is some part of your subconscious is saying, I need to go to Istanbul and do Whirling Dervish.
Yes. And, and there are those great cats. Istanbul's full of cats. Did you ever see that? Oh, what's the name of the movie? It begins with a K. Do you know, there's it's beautiful. There's a movie about all the cats in Istanbul.
How cool.
It is
in Greece. I was in Delphi last what was this, last summer, the summer before. I was in Greece, and same thing, tons of cats.
Right.
And that was really fun. Yeah.
So that's what I've been daydreaming about.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I feel that myself. My trilogy that I'm working on right now, the first book came about because I was on a trip in Ireland, Scotland, France, England, France, and it was this kind of whirlwind trip over the course of like 2 weeks. We were seeing just a ton, and I thought, what if I condensed that even more into this chase story throughout, and then that became the novel. And then the second book I went on a trip to Costa Rica, and so it's got its scene in Costa Rica, and it looks like this next year, my dad reached out and said he would like to take just me and my brother to Southeast Asia. Whoa. And I was like, then I guess that's where the third book is going to take place. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to, just taking notes like crazy and saying, meeting people and saying, would you like to be in a novel? Because I'm putting people into the, incorporate them into the book. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
That's really fun.
But yeah, travel is one of these wonderful ways to kind of open our minds. And so, yeah, I highly recommend to all writers out there.
And I had to do it backwards because I decided this thing about, I don't know, just about Sicily, and Sicily has active volcanoes. And then I decided they needed to go out to a bar. So, I mean, and then looking at Palermo and you can go Google Street View and you can start looking around at places. And so I invented this bar in Palermo, and all of that was really fun. It's not as fun as traveling, but it's also, I wound up enjoying it.
I totally do the same thing. Street View and the maps so that I get the street names right and stuff. And we have remarkable, tools at our disposal that writers did not have. And so I can do that research and say, I don't know that I'm necessarily getting the feel of the place right, but at least I can get these details right because it's all available there. Yeah, Palermo. That is cool, and I did, in fact, I created a bar in let's see, there is a bar called oh God, from Casablanca. What is the bar? Rick's. There is a Rick's now, made after the movie, of course, in Casablanca, and I ended up doing a whole bunch of reading about this place and the pianist who plays at the bar, and and then setting a scene there because we can find all this. It's at our fingertips. So
it makes world building very different in a way. I mean, but there is a thing to look, and you realize you can sit at a table and look at Roman ruins and an active volcano. Sicily, I had no idea actually how beautiful Sicily was. It was just an idea in my head. And then when I started digging a little bit further, because I'm really interested in the idea of Sicilian witches were really interesting. And when the Inquisition, when the Inquisition went to Sicily, they, wanted to round up the witches, and the witches said, admit that you believe in the devil, and the witches said, we don't like the devil, we like the fairies, we worship the fairies, and so they couldn't do anything with them. They had nothing to punish them for, and all the witches got off. So
oh, that's brilliant. Oh,
so I
that's
just
great.
feel like it's this kind of magic in the. There's the really, really strong magic there. So I was really interested in that.
I just read Patrick Rothfuss, the second book in his what's the name of the wind, and then the wise man, the old man's, no, the wise man's fear, and it's got this whole scene where the character enters the world of the Fae, and you get it's really, really cool. And so yeah, that has certainly been on my mind. And then Kate Ristow, who's one of the authors that we work with, has a series of novels, and the third will come out hopefully this year, and has, this teleporting back and forth into our world and the world of the Fae, and it's beautiful. So highly recommend. But yeah, I love that kind of sense of the Fae are, I'm sure you found this in your research too, that they're not nefarious or benign. They're capricious and, and have a different sense of I don't even want to say kind of amorality, like, and so that's been fun to read about. How do humans interact with this group of people who are immortal and don't really care about morality in the same way that a mortal has to in order to live in a functional society, because they've got magic. And so that's I like when people play with the, it's not the Tinkerbell kind of fairy. This is
Tinkerbell could be morally ambiguous.
Yes.
You think about her poisoning Wendy.
True.
Yes. Or trying to poison Wendy.
Yes, a little more nefarious Tinkerbell is actually cooler.
Yeah.
I like that. So what is something that you want listeners to be thinking about right now that that's going on with you? You've got your art show coming up. And then what else has been going on with you in terms of your writing life that we should get on everybody's radar?
Well, I mean, I think I said a lot of the things that I've been thinking about have been, I've been really lucky to be in some really interesting anthologies recently. And with people who, especially, this one, the Written with Pride one, the Underdogs one, I'm really excited that also the editors, he's a Black writer in Texas, and he just published his first novel, and he decided to do these anthologies. It's so exciting. So, and I've had a nice correspondence with him. That's all been really good. So I've been thinking about those things, and then I've been thinking about, the world. But I think one of the things I most have that's been like a refreshing thing to me, or maybe a healing kind of thing to me, is I've been paying a lot of attention to birds, and I've been paying a lot of attention to raptors. And I was out with a friend. We were sitting, and I'd seen a lot of hawks, and we saw this bird come over. I don't actually know anything about birds really, but they keep showing up. And so we noticed the bird had a yellow beak, and I found out that was probably a falcon. And then I found out at UMass, about a mile and a half from me, in the Du Bois Library, there are falcons nesting on the roof.
Oh, really?
So these falcons have been, I was out walking, and I saw two of them like flying around, and I swear they're coming and checking me out, or what are you? I saw them anyway. So I've been looking at pictures of them and of nesting, and like I said, I'm not a real birder, like I'm not, but I like sort of the broad picture of these birds coming into these neighborhoods, and they're my neighbors. They live at UMass, which is really funny, and that's been a really wonderful thing to be, and that's making its way into my writing also. The story in the Underdogs Rise is about a shape-shifting hawk, a woman who shape-shifts as a hawk.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And this hawk had really, I am serious, she had been sort of, I would feel an itch at the back of my neck, like someone's watching me, and I'd look up, and the hawk would just be, she's like, how's the story coming? So.
Right. If you ever get a chance to travel out here to the Pacific Northwest, in the valley where I live, the Willamette Valley, you can, float down the Willamette River, and you will see bald eagles, peregrine falcons, lots and lots of hawks, lots of vultures, which you think when you see them high up, oh look, there's another one. Oh no, it's then you see the head.
Vulture,
Oh,
yeah.
oh no, not so much. But yeah, we have lots of beautiful birds of prey in this area, and you're right, they'll just land on a house. I'm driving to work, and this beautiful hawk will land there, and they'll just check you out. What are you doing in my neighborhood? Because this
That's
is
right.
theirs, as far as they're
It's the
concerned.
neighborhood watch hawk, I
Yes.
think.
Yes. Oh, that's great. So every week we do a weekly poll, and I forgot to run the weekly poll last week, so you'll be the first voter. But Brian Parker's question that's going to go out to everybody is clowns or ghost children? Which do you find more frightening?
Oh, come on, clowns. Absolutely clowns. There's no question.
I was torn because as soon as I heard the question from Brian, I put them together in my mind. And I was like, now I'm seeing ghost child clowns. This is everything.
Anyone that's terrifying.
Clowns are inherently terrifying. And the idea that, hey, let's put these in circuses, they will amuse children. It's like, I don't know how anybody ever thought that would work, but they are terrifying. So what would be your poll question? And then we'll toss both up this week.
Okay, so it's a bird question. So, who, owls or crows?
Yes.
Who do you want at your back in a fight? Owls or crows?
Oh, I like that a lot. We, my fiance is, I don't want to, bias the poll at all, but my fiance is actively trying to build an army of crows at our house. And apparently you can feed them and you can, incentivize them, and then they will decide this is a house we like, and you'll keep coming back. So we may have an army of crows at our house, whereas the owls are far more practical. They are taking care of the field mice.
Yeah, and they don't flock really.
No,
crows
no,
don't.
no. But we have,
owls don't flock. So
yeah, we've got it. I live in a relatively agricultural area. There, a few blocks north of me, and you're in farmland, and so the owls love it here because there's lots. There's lots for them to eat. So, what's been in your to read pile? What have you been looking forward to?
Well, I know that Martha Wells has a new book out, and it's a fantasy book. And I even wrote down the name because I knew I was going to forget it. The Witch King.
I love.
She has a new book called The Witch King, and I love the Murderbot.
So great.
I would read all of them again and again. I just love them.
Yeah.
And she's such a wonderful fantasy writer as well as a science fiction writer.
And I've not read any of her fantasy, so I'm looking forward to that. That will be really fun.
And I'll tell you the two books that I really liked, The Cloud Roads a lot, and then I also read City of Bones. I've read it twice.
And they're both fantasy.
They're both fantasy, and there's a way that she handles in City of Bones. She writes an alien. He doesn't think he's an alien. We think he's an alien, but she writes this alien person in a lot of the same way. He reminds me of Murderbot, of somebody. Oh, and I know what it is. He's morally ambiguous.
Yep.
As are crows, and as are the Fae.
Yeah.
As is Murderbot. That this idea of a person with this, it's a different. It's like moral relativity.
Yeah.
And I'm really drawn to those characters, and she writes that really well. So I don't know what this Witch King is like, but I'm looking forward to it.
Do her fantasy works have that humor that Murderbot has too? Because that's what I loved that series. It was so funny. The character is not even. You don't get the sense that he's intentionally trying to be funny, but he's hilarious.
Right. I don't think that. I have not found any of her fantasy books to be funny, and I found them to be a little bit like and her world building is brilliant, and as you would only guess that her world building would be brilliant. So I found them to be a little bit heavy. I don't mean heavy in a negative way, but just a little bit more heavy. Whereas Murderbot is so influenced by popular culture, like downloading all this media, that I think Murderbot's hysterical. So they don't have that same.
It would be really interesting to read both to get this deeper sense of Martha Wells herself. Like, this is Martha Wells doing fun stuff, and this is the heavier stuff. So I will have to check those out.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about M.K. Martin has the sequel to Survivors Club. The book Ashfall is coming out, and I kind of feel badly for M.K. Martin because Survivors Club is about kind of preventing a pandemic, And then we had one, and we have
Mm.
no control as writers over when, world events will hit. And so Survivors Club is a wonderful book. It's really fun and fast paced and very exciting. But the big danger, the stakes are, we could end up with a pandemic. And of course, far scarier pandemic than we even faced. The people turn into like tentacled, horrific monsters.
Right.
But to have that book come out and then have a pandemic hit, I hope people don't have pandemic fatigue to the extent that they're saying, I don't want to read a sequel about it, because her world, when it then descends into this apocalyptic chaos, Ashfall is a great book. If folks are not so traumatized by the actual pandemic, a pandemic where people become tentacled monsters it's a really fun, fast-paced read. So folks, check out Ashfall when that drops next
It
month.
could be refreshing.
Maybe, hey, at least it wasn't that.
Right.
It wasn't the end of world when everybody grows tentacles. Yeah. So where can folks find you online and find out more about your work?
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under my name, Marianne Xenos, Xenos. And there's only one other Marianne Xenos that I know of, and so it's pretty easy to find me. And also I have a website, www.marianneXenos.com. So I list all my publications there. I try to always put an asterisk near the ones that people can read for free, because there are about 4 online right now that people can read for free, and then others are in print. So
yeah, that's great. I encourage listeners, check those out, even the free ones. I mean, of course, definitely buy Marianne's books.
always buy the book.
But the free ones, it is helpful to us as writers, because then the publisher, whoever is posting that story, is getting those hits. They are seeing who is going, and so absolutely check those out. That's cool for us too. So some folks I should thank before we sign off. Thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song, I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3 Ds. And thanks to Halizna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band and would like your song used on the show, I would love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song, so email me about that. Thanks to Doug, the producer, for making this show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. And I cannot forget to mention, Writers Not Writing is a production of Not a Pipe Publishing. So please go to notapipepublishing.com and check out the amazing books written by writers like Marianne, who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate it and review it wherever you found it, and check out Marianne's short story in the anthology Written with Pride, The Underdogs Rise, and Writers of the Future, Volume 39. It's a big feather in Marianne's cap as well. I'd forgotten to mention that one. That's a cool thing to have on your writer's resume. And tell a friend about those listeners. Recommend those to other folks. Even a short review and a single click on that 5th star makes a huge difference to authors. So if you've got 3 minutes, make Marianne's day, click on it and say Marianne's story was the best in the whole anthology. That's wonderful. And I am far too old to say smash that like button, so gently click on the like button for this show too. That would be really nice of you. And so that brings us to our sign off. Marianne, what would you like folks to remember as they go into this next week?
I've been thinking a lot about perfectionism, and I've been thinking about how perfectionism often is maybe what comes before all the procrastination. It's sort of that procrastination is wonderful in a way. It can be creative, but also sometimes perfectionism keeps us from working. And there's a quote here. Perfectionism said that Anne Lamott said that perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor. She said a writer's job is to sit down and write a poopy first draft. So let's do that.
I love that idea that it is. Yeah, it's all the negativity that we've absorbed from the culture saying don't. Pushing through that. I totally agree. I would also say to everybody, remember in life, if you, as in writing, it's the spaces between that make something meaningful. If you put out a book with no spaces in it, it would be indecipherable, and we need to have those spaces in our lives as well. So take some spaces. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, we're still proud of you.